Alrighty, everybody. We've got Kaz Grala here with us. Thanks for joining us today. Kaz, we wanted to give you a big congratulations on that P4 finish at Road America this past weekend. That was a crazy race, wasn't it?
It was definitely a fun one too. Yeah, that was a good day for us. Smooth day. That's what we like to see, and a little bit of everything. Dry, wet, everything you could imagine.
Yeah. So with we know you're running a part-time schedule with RCR. So when it comes to the no practice situation, when it comes to no qualifying, how much does that play into a race, especially on one of these road courses when you're trying to build a strategy and get up there to the top?
It certainly adds a whole different element of challenge to these races. And for me personally, especially on a road course, I actually think that the no practice kind of plays into my hands. I've got a good bit of experience at Road America and on road courses in general. So I feel like that gave me not a leg up on the whole field, but a leg up on some of the guys who are less experienced on the road courses. So I didn't think that was a bad thing. And so far, the two races I've done, I've been lucky to have a good draw. So I'm fine without qualifying as long as I keep drawing up front. But they changed that actually. This past weekend was the last weekend of the draw. It's now going to be a whole different lineup system. So I guess my luck continued all the way through the end. I'll take it.
Yeah. That new draw that they've got coming up, you kind of got to be Einstein to figure that out, don't you?
Yeah, it's a little bit above my pay grade to figure that out. I'll just have to tune into Twitter every week to see what the deal is.
There you go.
So had you ever raced in the rain before? And if and just in general, what was that like?
I've raced in the rain before. Bunch of different vehicles, everything from legend cars, sports cars. I've driven a Mazda Miata in the rain. I've driven a Daytona prototype in the rain, actually. But my experience in the rain in the Xfinity Series is pretty limited. There was one race I was in 2018 at Watkins Glen where it rained, but it was a really quick shower and literally the track was wet for like 5 laps and dried back up. So I didn't have a whole lot of experience, and I would still say I don't have a whole lot of experience because I was on slicks in the rain, which is a little bit different than actually being in the rain. On the tires, you should be on the rain. So it was pretty hard trying to hang on to the thing, but we had a strategy, we had a plan, we carried it out, and at the end of the day, I don't think it gained us anything, but we also didn't lose anything. I think we still finished the race probably about the position we deserved. I think we might have been a third place car, and we finished right on third place's bumper. So, I mean, it was pretty close.
And so you guys obviously had a different pit strategy. Is that something that you guys made a game time decision, or was that really just like pre-prepared beforehand?
It was definitely a game time decision because we were trying to analyze A, how wet the track was and where there was any standing water, if any, and B, the crew chief was keeping an eye on the radar trying to figure out, is there more rain in the forecast? Is it done raining? That all played into it. And in fact, we tried to keep it secret on the radio so other teams wouldn't know. Well, that even kept it a secret from me, actually. I did my pit stop. I rolled out of pit lane, and I came on the radio and asked the team, what do I have on? Do I have on wets or dries? They called for dries, and I think we were maybe the only car, at least one of 2 or 3, but I think maybe even the only car that stayed on dry tires. Unfortunately, just after we rolled out on the dry tires, it actually drizzled again, which set us back probably 2 or 3 laps of wet track conditions. So if that hadn't happened, we're pretty confident we would have won that stage in a dominant fashion, just having played that strategy right. But the drizzle set us back a bit, and man, was I hanging on to that thing. I don't know if you've ever driven a car without treaded tires in any sort of wet conditions, but it was really difficult.
At that
but
speed,
then it went back the other way for everybody else. Then I was gaining like 3 or 5 seconds a lap on the other cars who were on the wet tires, and they were having a handful while I was all gripped up and feeling good. So it's a trade-off in that sense.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, we knew we were having you on, and once we knew that, obviously you're going to have a couple fans for life here. And we saw you back in 27th, and we're like, oh, come on, man, what are you doing? Get back up there. And then we saw you up there, and you were able to pick off a few cars, and we were like, okay, that he knows what he's doing more than we do.
Yeah, well, you and I were both worried when I was back in 27 because depending on how cautions flew or if it were to have rained again, we could have been in major, major trouble. But luckily, the way things played out were not quite how we had hoped, but close enough to where we held serve and still were able to have good track position going into the third stage.
Awesome, man. Well, congratulations again on that. But before we jump into the rest of this here, we wanted to give our audience just a little bit of who you are now that you're in the Xfinity Series. You're making a name for yourself, and we know you started racing karts when you were like 4 years old, and then moved at 10, and were winning championships everywhere into the Bandoleros, and then you were the youngest. You started racking up all the youngest to do everything, these titles, I guess you could call them. And you were the youngest to race for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the legacy cars. Were you racing legacies for them, or
late models, super late models?
Late models, yeah. Late models for Kyle Busch. And then you went to Daytona in the truck race and were the youngest pole sitter and the youngest winner. And then that got you to be the youngest ever to start in the NASCAR playoffs. So eventually you're going to start getting older here, and you're going to stop capturing all these youngest titles. Is that something that creates a little bit of pressure for you as you're going into the next series, that you've had this success, or is it something that gives you drive that you can succeed as you get to another series?
Yeah, I definitely think it gives me drive, and unfortunately, I think you're right. I might even be at that point already. I don't see any more youngest this, youngest that titles coming my way anytime soon at the moment. But no, I'm fine without being the youngest winners. I just need to be the winner. That's the number one goal. And I think so far I've been able to keep moving up the ladder. And at the end of the day, right now, it's going to come down to trying to network and find the sponsorship that it takes to be in this series full time. Last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to run part-time seasons, and this year and last year at one of the best organizations in the whole sport. So it doesn't get much better than that, but full-time would be better. And that's what I'm working towards and hoping to have some year coming up in the future.
Awesome.
Right on. So you're obviously a very skilled driver. So is there anything you're naturally just bad at? Football, riding a bike, anything?
Oh God, we don't have enough time, I'm guessing, on this podcast for me to go through that. My balance and coordination is not up to par when it comes to trying to do anything athletic that takes some sort of skill. I don't care if it's skateboarding or surfing or snowboarding or anything where you have to have hand-eye coordination and balance. You can pretty much count me out on that.
Awesome. So you technically you're part-time, but racing is your full-time career. That's what you want to do. So what is a day in the life of Kaz Grala? What is it you do typically day to day to prepare?
That's a great question, actually, because most people watching a driver with a part-time schedule thinks that, well, they're just doing these few races and they're not doing anything else the rest of the time, which I can't speak for all of us, but I know for me personally, that's definitely not the case. I am working on my racing career every day. It starts in the morning. I go to my trainer's house and work out. We get about an hour and a half workout in every morning, and then do stretching and all sorts of maintenance for making sure I stay healthy. From there, I go back to my house and I work on writing emails and reaching out to people, different companies, trying to network, get to know them, and see if I can gauge some interest for who could be interested in getting involved in the sport going forward. So I send a lot of emails, and all it takes is one or two to come back with some really positive aspirations for getting into racing, and hey, that could be my full-time ride for next year. So it's definitely tough work. It's hard because a lot of people don't respond to emails. You know, you can be told no 1,000 times, but like I said, you just need to be told yes that one time, and that could be the difference maker in your career. So you have to just keep pounding, keep making those cold calls, those cold emails, and hoping that something comes back. But I'm also pretty involved over here at Richard Childress Racing. I'm actually sitting in Richard Childress Racing as we speak.
Awesome.
One of my teammates, Earl Bamber, he's racing in the number 21 car this weekend at the Daytona Road Course.
Okay.
He's in the next room over on the simulator, and I'm here helping to coach him. So you'll see me around the shop all the time, less now with the pandemic affecting the work schedules and such over here. But every day of my life from when I wake up to when I go to sleep is still centered around racing and trying to figure out how I can move myself forward in this industry. Yeah,
awesome. And we know you're from Boston, and we obviously said you got your start super early. Was there somebody that drove that passion for you? Was there a driver, or was it somebody in your family that spurred you on to like stock car racing, or was stock cars always the dream?
Stock cars were not always the dream. In fact, racing in general wasn't always the dream. Early on, it was just something fun to do. I didn't really look at it as a career or necessarily a dream or passion. When I was really little, I was 4 years old, I was playing every sport like a lot of little kids do, just to kind of see, what do I like? What am I good at? And racing is not your typical sport to try out, and especially not being from Boston, Massachusetts. That's not very big up where I'm from. So to answer your question, my dad, he did used to race. He raced in sports cars, which is now the Daytona prototype class in the IMSA series. So he's the one that kind of introduced me to it at first, but I can't say him or anyone else is really who drove my passion. Truly, just being in the race car, go-kart, whatever it was at the time, being in it and in that competition, that's what drove me. So it was it was motivation and determination from inside, just personally, really loving doing this. And years later, when I was probably around 10 years old, is when I looked at stock cars for the first time and said, okay, I think that's what I want to do. I really like that. It looks like a lot of fun. Let me see how I can get myself there.
Awesome. Yeah. And you know, we've talked about the age a couple times, and you're still young. You're 21 right now, right?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So we've talked about that, but it seems like there's young guys like you and your good buddy Justin Haley and all these young guys who are just making their way up through the series. But the age demographic of the people watching NASCAR continues to skew older and older. Is there something, and part of what we want to do is bring young guys that maybe don't have the gift of driving really fast in a race car and doing it well like you do, but bring those fans to the sport. Is there something that you think that we can do on a podcast, or that NASCAR or you guys can do as racers to continue to get younger guys in the sport?
I mean, that certainly is a tough question. And to be honest, I don't know exactly what you guys can do. I think everybody working and chipping away at it together is what's probably going to help that the most. I mean, you see a lot of the young drivers making their way up the ranks nowadays. I think that will help engage some younger people, and slowly but surely it is our audience was aging, and now they're aging more slowly, which tells me that as our younger drivers move up, they are starting to trickle in some younger fans with them as well. But
awesome.
I think there are some things NASCAR can do to help that, and those are things that are in the works and things that they've been introducing along the way in terms of different ways to consume our content digitally, different ways for fans to interact with drivers through social media platforms or interactively at the track. Anything that really can put the race fan closer to our sport and our competitors than a lot of other sports do. Because one of the biggest advantages that racing has is a lot of times the drivers and the teams, the organizations are more accessible to the fans than many other major sports. Right. So that's something that we definitely need to keep moving forward with, and finding new ways with the way the world is now and technology, new ways that we can accomplish this, and particularly using newer technology and social platforms to do so. That's what's going to bring the younger generation in on our sport. But at the end of the day, we're racing really fast cars I think people are always going to love that.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter how many decades from now or centuries from now, that primal need for speed is always going to exist. And so I feel pretty good about the longevity of our sport,
Awesome.
given that, because you're never going to lose that in people.
For sure.
Yeah. So in a recent interview, and you alluded to this earlier about making connections and partnerships and looking for sponsorship. I'm so curious to ask a little bit more about this, because I never really thought that it was the driver's place to go out and find sponsorship opportunities. I guess I just never really thought about that, because that's truly making a race car driver so well-rounded that you not only have to be good in the car and prepare for these races, but you have to be very good with people and making connections. And so is that something that's typically required of the driver or owner, or a mixture of both?
Well, yes and no. I think all drivers always do have to be good with people and business savvy, because even if you're not the one finding the sponsors, you still need to interact with them. You need to be able to, shake hands, kiss babies, make sure they're happy, make sure that they speak well about you to other companies. That could be future opportunities. So that is part of our sport. Drivers in general have to be marketable. There's no way around that. However, you're absolutely right. Most of the time, drivers are not actually the ones finding their own sponsorship. And even if a driver brings the sponsor to a team, usually the driver isn't the one that found it or reached out to them. Someone on their personal team, not race team, but on their payroll, or someone that they're working with, is the one who captured that sponsor for them, and the driver brings it with them to the team.
Okay.
Me, on the other hand, I don't have a team of people. I don't have anybody on my payroll that's helping me find sponsorship. And frankly, I've always been a believer of nobody's going to put their heart into it and their effort into it for you more than you will for yourself. I mean, you can have as many people as you want working on your sponsorship, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to be most passionate and most caring about making sure that I make these connections, because it's my own career that's on the line. So I do think that I might be one of the only young drivers currently making their way up the ladder who's doing that themselves. But you kind of alluded to it. I think it does make me a more well-rounded driver, more well-rounded person in general, and frankly helps me prepare. If I ever don't make it in racing, I'll have to be business savvy. I'll have to figure out some other way to make money, some other job. So having this life experience and knowing how to be in meetings and how to initiate the conversation and everything that goes along with the work that we do, I think that it definitely helps me get an education in life. I was accepted to college, to Georgia Tech for engineering a couple of years ago, and I deferred that to chase my dream here in NASCAR. Well, I feel like I'm getting an education in a lot of different aspects of life here, even though I'm not currently enrolled in college. But that's something that could be on the back burner someday. I could go to college, but right now I'm learning plenty every day, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, you're kind of a businessman and a driver, and we saw that you got into Georgia Tech. That is no small feat. So to put that off, you got a lot going for you, not only in the business sense, but in an engineering degree from Georgia Tech sitting on the back burner isn't a bad option either, brother.
Yeah, I would love to go do that someday. And a lot of people in racing don't know it, because growing up, my two lives were kind of separate. I lived this life down south being a race car driver, and then I would go back during the week up north to Massachusetts and be a student and have that whole separate side of me. So engineering has been something I've always been passionate about. I've always been a bit of a self-proclaimed tech nerd. I love coding. I love anything electronic, any iPhone, any tablet, any computer. I'm all about that stuff. So that's definitely a career path that I've got that I can go to at any time. But the bottom line is, since I was young, this has been my dream in racing. So cool. I want to make sure that I see this out and give it my all to try to make this work before I go to a backup plan.
There you go. Yeah. So speaking of the coding, and then I'll let Bart, he's got a couple interesting questions here for you. Speaking of the coding though, what is your view on like bringing in hybrid technology? We see Formula One, we see IndyCar, they've brought in like this regenerative braking and lots of different hybrid technology into these cars. And there's been some talk about it within NASCAR. What do you think about bringing that kind of stuff in? Do you think that would help the sport, or do you think that's a place NASCAR needs to go? Or are you more of the traditional mindset, keep it like what the people are driving on the road?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, and there's 100 different perspectives to it. I mean, at the end of the day, anything that you change on these race cars is going to raise the costs for the team, because they're going to have to do R&D. They're going to have to build it, buy it, whatever it involves. It's going to involve an investment. So that's the negative to it. The positive is a lot of the manufacturers sometimes do try to push towards some of these more technological advances. Nothing too out there tech-wise, but stuff more similar to the electronics you would see on your actual car that you drive every day, because anything that makes our cars closer to the real street cars helps the manufacturers lower their costs, because they can do a lot of the R&D on these systems and concepts on our race cars that will someday translate to the real road cars. So it's always a fight between raising costs for teams or raising costs for manufacturers, vice versa. But for me personally, I like the direction NASCAR is going, and I love these race cars. I've driven a lot of other cars. I've driven sports cars, open wheel, closed wheel. I've even done some dirt cars, you name it. And these cars here, these stock cars, are truly the most bare bones, all about the driver. There's no systems, no assists, no electronics that are going to help you or make your job any easier. It's really up to you, your brain, your right foot, your left foot, to figure out how to get this car to go as fast as it can. And I love that about our series. So hopefully, no matter what they change going forward and little things they tweak throughout the years that inevitably happen, hopefully at the core of our sport, it will remain all about trying to keep the cars as close to equal as they can and be able to showcase the drivers.
Awesome.
Very nice. Well, I got a couple fun questions for you. So Bart Lewis is a unique name. I've always had Bart Simpson, Bart the Fart growing up. To me, Kaz Grala is a race car name. That is right there next to Cole Trickle. So growing up, I mean, I'm sure you had nicknames. I'm sure you had people call you different names. I got Mark and Clark and all sorts of stuff. So like, what'd you get growing up?
Well, first of all, mispronunciations is what I got all growing up. No teacher on the first day of school ever knew how to say my name. And frankly, well, actually, from what I hear, I guess the commentators on the broadcast this past weekend didn't even know how to say my name. And I've been in this series for 3 years.
Right.
I think, oh gosh, what did they call me? I already forgot. Chaz, I think.
Yeah, you got
yeah.
Gaz, and they like merged your name into Gaz a couple times and Chaz one time. So they were shooting for the win there for a little bit.
There's something about my name that just always causes people to second guess how to say it. It's really, honestly, if you just sound it out, it's as cut and dry as it could be, but everyone tries to get fancier with it and try to guess that it's supposed to be pronounced like this or with an accent. It's like, nope, it's pretty straightforward. But I get Kaz, I get Kaz, I've gotten Kazoo before, Cashew, and my last name people find 100 ways to mispronounce too. But Tasmanian Devil has been one that I've heard a lot growing up. Kaz the Spaz. I mean, the list goes on. But yeah, Kaz is really all people need to know. It's just Kaz. It's that easy. It's like Danica, just a first name. I don't even need the last name. People know who you're talking about when you say Danica. I'll go with Kaz.
So here's another one for you. So you're a team owner, and you got to hire a crew chief, a driver, and a spotter. I'm going to give you one good friend. I believe you're good friends with Justin Haley. But what about Harrison Burton and Noah Gregson? The three of those, who do you select for each of those positions, the crew chief, the driver, and the spotter?
that's a tough one. I mean, I would go with my friend Justin, but God, as the team owner, I don't want to hear that much complaining. So I might be second guessing that one. But no, from an on-track perspective, of those three, I might be a little biased, but I do think Justin takes the cake of those three there.
Cool.
Nice. And then what's next? So do you have any more races this year and anything planned for the future here?
Yeah, I've got a few more races left with RCR, probably about 3 or so. And from there, I don't know. That's stuff I'm currently working on, trying to position for and plan. I'm still writing the emails, still trying to figure out what I can gather together for next year. But I'm hoping it's going to be at least as much of a schedule as this year, but really ideally hoping to be even more than that. As I mentioned before, I'd really love to be full-time in the Xfinity Series.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2018, thought I was going to be full-time in the series, and one of the teams I was with ended up closing down mid-season. So I've gotten a taste of what it would be like to run full-time in Xfinity. And now a few years later, I'm still waiting for that right opportunity, right door to open. So I'm hoping that door will open for next year. But if not, I'll keep working on it and trying to open that door myself in a future year.
Well, the odds are definitely in your favor. Hats off to you
sure.
for going at it and trying to get a sponsor on your own.
Yeah, you got two big advocates over here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll leave you with this parting, I guess you could call it a shot. You did an interview a little ways back. You did a Q&A, and they asked you who you would most likely punch in the face. And you said Justin. Have you had to stoop so low yet? Has he gotten out of line yet?
No, not yet. I have not punched him yet, but it's coming any day now. He's always got it coming.
All righty. Well, as I said before, man, we really appreciate you coming on. Congratulations on that P4 finish. We know you'll put it in victory lane soon here, and you got 2 fans for life right here, bud. So we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'll be on anytime you guys want.
For sure. Yeah.